Leighton House is the home of Frederic Leighton, who was one of the most eminent British artists of the late 19th century. Leighton's work depicted historical, biblical and classical subject matter, and his paintings were enormously popular during his lifetime and very expensive. After his death, they did fall out of favour for several decades in the early 20th century. His success as an artist enabled him to design and build this lavish London townhouse. The architecture, decoration and contents were all a part of his artistic expression and spirit, and Leighton's home established what it meant to be a great artist in late Victorian London. An interesting fact about Leighton was that he was the bearer of the shortest lived peerage in history. He lost the title after only one day due to his death. Today the house acts as a museum and it's open from 10 till 5:30 every day, but it's closed on Tuesdays. The house has also served as a backdrop to various film and television programmes as well as some music videos. It's been the backdrop to the drama series Spooks, and it was in the music video for the songs Golden Brown by the Stranglers and Gold by Spandau Ballet. Leighton acquired the empty plot in 1864, and the first version of the house was actually relatively small, but Leighton continued to work with his friend and architect George Aitchison over 30 years on a series of extensions and embellishments until shortly before his death in 1896. The house evolved over the years from a somewhat humble home into a palace of art. Right now we're in the staircase hall, which was designed by Aitchison and Leighton as a statement of the distinctive artistic character of the house. Any visitors who were coming in to have their portrait or commission done would pass through this staircase, therefore providing an opportunity for Leighton to showcase his collection and unique vision for his home. Inspiration for this staircase came from the courtyards at the rear of the Venetian palazzos of the 15th century. The objects that he chose to display in this space really demonstrate the diversity of his collection culturally. There's Turkish tiles, a Syrian chest, and a copy of Michelangelo's Creation of Adam. Next, we walk through the Narcissus Hall, which is a corridor that links the staircase hall to the Arab Hall. In the centre of this space is a cast of Narcissus, which is an original Roman sculpture that was excavated from the ruins of Pompeii in the 19th century. The figure comes from classical mythology of a youth who falls in love with his own reflection in a pool. Leighton has reflected this emotion into the architecture and design by using deep turquoise blue tiles produced by potter William de Morgan. These tiles reflect in the gilded ceiling above, creating a watery effect, heightened by the sound of the nearby fountain in the Arab Hall. We've now entered into the Arab Hall, which has to be one of the most spectacular interiors in London. The Arab Hall was the centrepiece of an extension made to the house at the end of the 1870s, and it was more expensive to build than the whole of the original house. On completion in 1882, it caused a sensation, and there was nothing comparable to it in London at the time. This room greatly increased the profile and prestige of Leighton's home. Despite this, Leighton's only recorded comment on the Arab Hall was that he had built it for the sake of something beautiful to look at once in a while. The space was inspired by the architecture, interiors and courtyard gardens that Leighton had seen on his travels to North Africa and the Middle East. The 12th century palace of L'Aziza in Palmero, Sicily was also a major influence, providing a model for the gold mosaics that Leighton commissioned from Walter Crane. If you watch Spandau Ballet's Gold, you will recognise this window as one of the key backdrops to their music video. Leighton had a real fascination with tiles, and he had a massive collection of tiles coming from Damascus, Syria, as well as other places. It's often said that a lot of the architecture even revolved around fitting in with the tiles. The entrance hall was actually the first room, but I've just come back to this now, and it actually would have been where originally breakfast could have been taken. It was later remodelled to be an office of sorts, where visitors and business callers were received. Now we are entering the dining room. This is where Leighton entertained his guests, which were mostly made up of artists and society figures. Apparently, he used a chair that was slightly higher than those of his guests. The dining room has an exceptional view over the garden and displays much of the pottery that he'd collected during his travels. This was the drawing room, which was part of the original house that was built in the mid-1860s. My favourite part of this room was definitely the chandelier. It was absolutely sensational. The room's purpose was supposedly that of a withdrawing room where the ladies could retire to after dinner. We then head upstairs, and here we're in the antechamber room, which was probably my second favourite room. I'm sure it's a lot of people's second favourite room after the Arab Hall. Leighton referred to this space as his snug, and he used it as a second, more intimate studio space. This room is jam-packed of incredible paintings and works of art. They have these pamphlets available in the room so you can identify all the individual pieces. The Silk Room acted as a gallery which contained works of art by contemporary artists who were also some of Leighton's friends. Now we move into Leighton's bedroom, which was his only truly private space in his whole home. You can see there's a strong contrast between this room, which is pretty minimal and humble in its presentation, with the rest of the house, which was created to inspire awe in its visitors. Leighton died in this room in January of 1896, his final words being "My love" to the Royal Academy. He then spoke to his two sisters in German. The last two rooms are the studio and the winter studio. Leighton intended the studio to serve as an impressive and memorable moment for those that entered it. It was designed to be not only a functional workspace, but a showroom as well. This was the room where virtually all of Leighton's paintings that he created as a mature artist were produced. Not only was this a place for art, but every spring Leighton would invite some of the most prominent international musicians of the day to come and perform for a group of his friends. Next, we enter the final room, which was the winter studio. As an artist myself, I completely understand his need for this room. Artists rely on natural light for painting, and the London winters were particularly dark due to the smog. So at the end of the 1880s, he added this additional studio space to allow him to utilise and make the most of the natural light during the winter. It was built with its own heating system and was for use specifically during the winter months. On the way out, they had this little exhibition of Maud and Marian's dresses, which was a really nice addition to the museum. As you exit the house, you come down this staircase and there's a video display where you can watch the history of Leighton and Leighton House. There's also a little art exhibition on as well. It also gave you the opportunity to see some of the rooms how they would have been when Leighton lived in the property. As you leave, be sure to have a final look around the garden. It's quite modest, but it is very beautiful, especially on a sunny day. Also worth checking out nearby is Jimmy Page's house, who's the famous guitarist from Led Zeppelin. It's one of the houses of a group of artist houses that was influenced by the Leighton House. You can't go inside, but you can see it from the outside. I also saw this very cute little gnome garden. I also found this huge passion flower bush full of ripe passion fruits, which is something I don't think I've ever seen before in the UK.
Oh my god, look at this one!
I did try one and it honestly wasn't that nice. It wasn't very sweet.